Welcome to Perspectives Online and on air from WFSU Public Media. I'm Tom Flanigan. This is program number 6 in our ongoing series of political perspectives in the run-up to that all-important August 18th primary election in Leon County. This program recorded on Tuesday, July 28th for playback both on WFSU FM and the WFSU Public Media Facebook page on Thursday, July 30th. And today we'll talk with 3 of the 4 candidates for Circuit Judge Group 4 in the 2nd Judicial Circuit. That, of course, comprises Leon, Gadsden, Wakulla, Jefferson, Liberty, and Franklin counties. So we'll meet those folks in a moment. Before we do, though, each candidate's going to have a few minutes to talk about their background, their unique qualifications for the job, and then we'll get into things such as judicial temperament and philosophy and those sorts of things, because that's pretty important too. The ultimate purpose, of course, to give you, the voter, sufficient information so you can make an informed and intelligent decision as to which candidate is your pick for the office. We don't enforce strict time limits, however. We'll ask everyone to kind of move the conversation along as best we can so we can cover more territory. So let's meet our candidates for the judge of the circuit court in the 2nd Judicial Circuit. This is Group 4, and in order of response to the drawing we had, we'll hear first from Nina Moody, who will tell us a bit about herself and her qualifications for office. Ms. Moody, go right ahead, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nina Moody, and I am running for Group 4, 2nd Judicial Circuit for judge. I have been an assistant public defender for almost 20 years now. I am currently the chief assistant public defender for our entire circuit. I have worked in all of our 6 counties, defending clients accused of crimes that are indigent and have court-appointed counsel. I have also was the chief public defender for Gadsden and Liberty counties for over 11 years. I have had over 120 trials. Prior to graduating from FSU Law School, I did work as a paralegal for the U.S. Department of Justice Antitrust Division. And also while working as an assistant public defender, I got certified as a certified family mediator by the Supreme Court and worked as a mediator in family law for a little while as well. And that in a nutshell is my experience.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Moody. Let's meet our next candidate for the Group 4 judge for the 2nd Judicial Circuit, and that would be Amanda Wall. Ms. Wall, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Amanda Wall, and I'm running for Circuit Judge Seat 4, of course. This is the seat that's being vacated by Judge Charlie Dodson, who is retiring this year. There are two circuit races going on, and so this is separate from the other race that includes Mr. Alvarez and Ms. Dempsey. I have 31 years of legal experience in the state of Florida. I began my career in Miami for 5 years of my first 5 years out of law school. I was hired by Janet Reno in 1989 and worked as a prosecutor. 4.5 of the 5 years I was in a felony division. I was a supervisor for juvenile crimes and also in a specialized unit for domestic violence in the felony court. After that, I worked for the Attorney General's office under Robert Butterworth in Hollywood, Florida, and in Tallahassee. My husband and I moved here to Tallahassee 25 years ago to raise our family. As an Attorney General, I worked in civil litigation, representing the Department of Insurance and the Department of Corrections in tort liability cases. When we moved up to Tallahassee, I also worked for the Florida Bar in civil law, representing and counsel to committees in the North Florida region from Pensacola all the way to Jacksonville. And then after that, I entered private practice as a family law litigator, and I have been a certified Supreme Court family law mediator since 2008. And in 2014, I was appointed by our chief judge here in our circuit as the magistrate hearing family law cases for the past 6 years. And as such, I've heard over 3,000 family law cases from beginning to writing an order. And so I have experience both as an advocate, but also in presiding and running a courtroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wall. And we end our introductory remarks and a little bit of background therein from our third candidate, Tiffany Baker. Ms. Baker, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Tom, and for conducting this forum, and thank you, Kim, who is the woman behind the scenes. I am Tiffany Baker, and I am running for Circuit Judge, Seat 4. And as we talk about the qualifications for becoming a circuit judge, one must be a member of the Florida Bar for at least 5 years in good standing. One must reside in the area in which they're seeking to run, and they must, either pay to get on the ballot or get on the ballot by petition. So I've been practicing here in the Big Bend area for over 7 years, and I've been, for that 7 years, I've been practicing as a criminal defense attorney, as well as a personal injury attorney and a family law attorney. So I started my career out under Nancy Daniels at the Public Defender's Office, and then later started with the then Barrett, Basic, and Brooks as a personal injury attorney. And when I went into private practice, I was able to get my feet a little bit more wet with my criminal defense trials. I've tried everything from a possession of marijuana up to a death penalty case. When I was with Barrett, Basic, and Brooks, I handled different kind of personal injury cases, slip and falls, auto accidents, products liability. And as a family law practitioner, I've handled divorces, time sharing plans, fraternity cases, and even injunctions. So that covers my wide range of experience, which is necessary for this circuit position, because a circuit judge hears most of those cases: criminal felonies, family law cases, injunctions, and circuit civil cases where the amount of controversy is over $30,000. In terms of my upbringing and background, I am from this community. I was born and raised in this community. I'm born in Quincy, Florida, left there after my parents' divorce when I was about 13, but decided that Miami was not the South. And I hurried back to Tallahassee, where my father had then moved, and I ended up graduating from Amos P. Gobby. So after I finished up law school at Howard University, I decided to come back home in order to serve the people of our community. And lastly, I got on the ballot by petition. I thought it was incredibly important that, you start the way you finish. So I wanted to start by getting out into the community and listening to the people of our community about what makes a good judge to them. And I collected 3,037 petition signatures from people in all 6 counties. And after listening to them, it has become quite clear that the people want a judge who's going to respect the bench, respect the people, and respect the law. And so that is why I am running to be your next circuit judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany Baker. And those are 3 of the 4 contenders for Group 4 in the 2nd Judicial Circuit judges race in the 6 county area. We did reach out to the 4th contender, who is Mr. Pete Williams. You might remember that he ran for a state attorney several cycles ago here for the 2nd Judicial Circuit. Had not heard back from Mr. Williams, but his name will appear on that primary ballot as well. Got some questions here, since we always talk about what is the philosophical position of each contender in a judicial contest, and what is their temperament, and some of the great judges of the past that perhaps they may admire and aspire to follow if they become a judge themselves. And let me start this off with you, Ms. Wall, if we can circle back to you here. Should considerations of the impact that your decision may have on the people involved in a case who come before you have any impact on your decision? You know, over and above the considerations of law. What about the people in a case? What's your thought on that?
Well, as a magistrate, I've had the opportunity to hear 6 years worth of cases in family law. So every day I heard the law on a particular topic that was brought before me, but also the testimony from the litigants themselves, the people who the case affects, from their families, from witnesses, friends, and oftentimes from even the children involved in the case. And so the facts very much, and the way that facts are presented to the court is very much obviously taken into consideration along with the law. And that's how a judge comes to a wise and fair and impartial decision. And so, of course, the court hears and wants to hear from the witnesses in the case, from sometimes, as I said, the children. It's a very important part of what we do every day. And that's why, kind of what you were saying, you know, judicial philosophy, demeanor is extremely important. How you run your courtroom is very important. I've had the opportunity to attend many times judicial college because of the fact that I've already been a magistrate, to be taught how to be appropriate, how to be unbiased, how to be fair in every case when people are coming before the court, and make them feel welcome and that they've had their day in court.
Thank you very much. If I could address the next one here to Nina Moody. We very often hear that a good judge is always in control of his or her courtroom. We know that sometimes attorneys can get a little bit, should we say, over-enthusiastic in their presentation before the court, and that it is very critical that a judge remain in control. But at the same time, every judge promises that he or she will be very civil and polite in the dispensation of rulings from the bench. How do you balance those two considerations? If maybe you do have a pretty contentious group of attorneys who are wrangling in front of you while you're hearing a case.
Well, I've witnessed that lots of times, being an advocate in the courtroom, and passion that an advocate is displaying before the court, before the bench, to a jury, it is necessary, but it needs to be respectful as well and civil. You don't want a brawl that you could witness outside on the playground happening in the courtroom. That is where you're not supposed to have bullies. Everyone is supposed to treat each other with dignity and respect, and that is something I would ensure in my courtroom, that we are not going to be bullies in the courtroom. We're there, the courtroom's there so that we settle our differences civilly. Yes, passion is necessary. Yes, you know, someone getting the point across, but it can be done in a respectful and dignified manner, and that is what I would expect, and that's how I have always conducted myself as an advocate in the courtroom.
Thank you very much. For you, Ms. Tiffany Baker, talk a little bit about this. Without exception, every judicial candidate I have ever heard since time immemorial pledges to be fair. I mean, that is part and parcel. I think on everyone's brochures that are out right now in the mail, I've seen that. I will be fair. That is a pledge that all the candidates make. But what does that word mean to you, Tiffany Baker? Define that for me. Oh, you better take yourself off mute too. That'll help.
Boom, got it. Thank you. So I grew up in Quincy, Florida, to a hardworking mother and father, middle-class family. And my father retired from over 20 years working with at the Florida State Hospital in Chattahoochee, Florida. And my mother retired as a mental health counselor from the Department of Corrections after working over 20 years. And what I've learned about, life from them is that you don't always judge a book by its cover. You value life, you value human life, and self-accountability. And so what fairness means to me is being able to listen compassionately with a compassionate heart and meet people where they are, because we're all humans and nobody is above anybody else. We are all equal under the eyes of God. And with that, you know, I think there's a Bible verse, it's Romans 2:11. There are no respective persons, you know, in the eyes of God. And that just means we're all equal. So with that, we start from the position that, I start from the position that I have to be open-minded, because like my mother said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so what I think may be right, or what I think may be the case, may not actually be what is, you know, the case for someone else. But I have to listen and open my heart so that I can hear exactly what the other person is saying. And a lot of times, you know, when people come in the courtroom, they don't speak the Queen's English. But by treating them with dignity and respect and affording them the equal opportunity to be heard, you can hear not only what they're saying, but what they're not saying. And by doing that, that opens the door to reach justice, which is the ultimate goal in any courtroom. Thank you.
While we're still talking to you, you expressed admiration for your mom and dad and the great celestial judge up there, but are there any particular, let's see, shall we say, worldly judges, jurists that you really have come to admire and would like to model your judicial career on, if that happens?
Okay, yes, I would have to say Thurgood Marshall from my my home school, Howard University Law School, the first African-American to be appointed to the Supreme Court. I love his advocacy and the work he did in Brown v. Board of Education and fighting for equality. I would have to say that Clarence Thomas gets a bad rap, especially in some communities, but I think he is one of the most intellectually pure jurists there is. And locally, I love Nikki Clark. Nikki has a reputation of just being fair and honest and following the law. And the way, you know, unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to advocate before her, but her reputation precedes herself. And I've sat down and I've had conversations with her about, you know, how she has conducted her courtroom, and I admire that. So those would have to be the three jurists that, you know, that I would say I like their style of conducting justice on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nina Moody, same question. Judicial mentors or folks who you admire?
Well, I started on the path of going to law school and wanting to be an advocate because of a judge I had when I was 17 for undergrad class, Judge Teresa Nolan. She was an amazing woman who did amazing things. She was working full-time, had 11 kids, 3 in diapers, and managed to keep her full-time job, graduate from undergrad and graduate from law school. And, you know, of course, when I met her, she was a judge, but hearing her story and how she did things and her passion for the law and for the community, that inspired me to want to start law school. So first, Judge Teresa Nolan. Over the last almost 20 years of practicing in the courtrooms of the Second Judicial Circuit, I have actually gained something from every judge that I've been in front of. The temperament of being able to keep a good, calm courtroom of Judge Kaloka Johnson, Judge Scherstrom, the knowing the people and listening to the people in front of them, Judge Derry. There's just been actually so many. And I have to agree with Nikki Clark too. She actually was a judge on a mock trial that I did in law school, and that's when I first got to meet her. And she has been amazing. I know she's retired now, but she was an amazing jurist as well. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Amanda Wall, who's on your list?
Well, as far as inspiration, that would be people who I know and who I've been able to work with and appear before, and that would be our chief judge, Judge Jonathan Shostrom, because I really admire him in that he is one of the only chief judges around the entire state of Florida who, you know, basically volunteered himself to be for years in front of the dependency court, which is a difficult court to run every day. And anybody who has been in that court understands that. And he volunteers to do that, and being a chief judge is hard enough. And so I really admire that type of commitment to children and families in the courts. And Judge Ashnafi Richardson, Judge Akins, so many of the judges of our circuit, if I don't name one, it's not because I don't admire them. But what I admire about the few that I have named is their involvement in the community, whether it be in veterans' rights courts that are attending to those types of issues, or drug courts, the specialty therapeutic courts that they run that are so important to our circuit. And I very much admire that, and I hope to emulate that. And then, of course, there's always the 4 Supremes that are the women judges of the Supreme Court. I don't know them, though, so.
Thank you very much. If you're just joining us, folks, this is another in our continuing series of political perspectives from WFSU Public Media. We're talking with 3 of the 4 candidates for the 2nd Judicial Circuit Group 4 judgeship. Charlie Dodson, great guy, spent a wonderful day. Just if I may make a quick aside, when he was working juvenile cases quite a number of years ago, and he invited me to come in to see exactly the dynamic, the interaction between the defense, the prosecution, the bench, in dealing with some really remarkable kids, many of whom had just run afoul of the law, and everyone was working to give them a second chance and get them back on the straight and narrow. So these 3 individuals who we are talking to today have some very large shoes to fill as we head into the election. By the way, some dates to keep in mind for the upcoming primary in Leon County: early voting starting on August 3rd and continuing through the 16th. You can check out the early voting sites, of course, on the Supervisor of Elections website. Primary election day is August 18th. I've got a question for all 3 of you, because as a judge in this circuit, we were talking about criminal and civil cases and all that kind of thing. But the 2nd Judicial Circuit is unique in that judges there are often called upon to decide the constitutionality of statutes passed by the Florida legislature. It's first stop when there is litigation therein. But the decision of those judges also likely to be appealed. So should the fact that an appellate court is highly likely to reverse your decision play a part in your judicial thought process? And Nina Moody, let's start with you on that. What do you think? And take yourself off mute, please. That'll help.
There we go. I said that is a good and interesting question. You know, I practiced in front of judges who really do not want to be reversed, and I practiced in front of judges who say that's what the appeals court is for if I get it wrong. And I know that I would try very hard to get the answer, the issue right, the law right on that issue. But if it had to go to an appellate court and I was overturned, that would be a learning lesson, obviously. Wouldn't hurt my ego at all, because we all are still learning. I mean, it is interesting because it brings me back to the first Supreme Court case in Marbury versus Madison, where judicial review for whether a law or an executive order is constitutional first originated or gained the legality to be able to do that. So that is true. And I do remember sitting here and watching back during Bush v. Gore and Judge Lewis having to make that decision. And of course, you know, the parties did appeal him, but I know that he really took the law, really did his best to apply the law to the facts. And that's exactly what I would do as well.
Thank you. Amanda Wall, same question. Does that enter into it? You've got it down. You know that you're doing the right thing, but you know the lay of the land, and politics should not play a part, but we know it always does. And you know, sure as shooting, it's going to go down on appeal. What do you do?
If I know it's going to go down on appeal, then I must not be following the law. What I would do is simply follow the law and apply the facts and do what I've done for the last 6 years. And I can tell you that when you're sitting there listening to the case and taking your notes and reading the law, reading the statutes, the case law that the litigants provide to you, that is all your job is. You're not there thinking every day about, am I overturned or am I not overturned? It's not something that passes by your mind because you're too busy, quite frankly, paying attention to and being prepared for the case that you're in. And I would assume that that's what I will always do. Whether it's a hot topic political issue that everybody, wants a certain way, or the majority of people want a certain way or not, it doesn't come into play any more than what comes into play in the experience I've had, where I've had family law cases where, the litigants before me have a very different way of raising their families and doing things. But the bottom line is you follow what the law says and what the facts are showing you. And that's what I will do as a circuit judge.
Fair enough. Tiffany Baker, same question.
Your question is whether or not I will be concerned about being overturned by the appellate courts when making my decision if it comes down to this hot button political issue. Absolutely not. One of the benefits of our American judicial system is appellate review. So I am pledging to the people that I am going to respect the law and respect them so that they can respect the bench. So my job as judge will be to be in that moment, read the facts of the case, listen to argument, and apply the law. It is simple as that. And if the appellate courts, if the judges on the appellate courts disagree with my perspective, disagree with my reasoning, that's why they are there. But in terms of being concerned about how I am going to rule in fear of being overturned, no, I am going to follow the law as your circuit judge. Thank you.
From following the law to following procedure in a brand new era. Since time immemorial, well, at least since what it was, I'm trying to think, the state of Florida used to have a convoluted labyrinthine type of judicial setup where there were multiple courts of all kinds, from municipal courts to a special court for the dispensation of matters concerning widows and orphans. I mean, it was a mess. And finally, the state of Florida came in and imposed some degree of uniformity and simplicity several years ago. And we've been dealing with the county courts and the circuit courts ever since. It's been pretty well streamlined. We got this down to a science, and boom, along comes COVID-19. And suddenly a lot of the procedures are totally out the window. Many cases are now being put on hold, other things in abeyance. And whoever ascends to this position on the Second Judicial Circuit bench is going to have a real challenge when it comes to dealing with that new reality. So let's get some ideas from you folks as to how you would conduct yourself, or what you see as some impending challenges facing you as a circuit judge in this new era. And let's start with you, Nina Moody. How do you see this playing out, and how do you see yourself reacting to what's going on in this newly redefined judicial system?
Well, once the courts are able to fully open up again, there is going to be quite a backlog. Criminal courts is what I'm working in right now, so I know that what's going on there better than I do understand what's going on in the other courts. We've been using Zoom. We can do that with our out of custody and our in custody clients, but some of the paperwork, like being fingerprinted, in custody, yes, we can get them fingerprinted out the jail. Out of custody, no. So for us, for the public defender's office, it's making sure you're working all your cases so that once you get back into the courtroom, you can know what cases you need depositions and need to be set on what's going to be a long trial docket. We're sure. Know what cases are going to work out a different way, either by negotiations. And if I was on the circuit bench, depending on which court I was assigned to, it would be trying to make sure you're available, the hours that you possibly can be for the attorneys and the people that need to come into court to be able to come in and get their cases heard. Being creative with maybe timing, you know, when you're willing to time things as well, so that the access to the courts will be there for all who need it, and hopefully get the backlog taken care of in a more efficient and timely manner once that we open back up. But it would, you know, all depend on what room you're in, you know, what, if you're doing family law or civil law or criminal law. And I think that it's being organized and getting it done, and being willing to do the work, which of course I would be willing to do.
Very good. Amanda Wall, your challenges as you see them in this strange dystopian reality that we're facing here.
Well, COVID-19 has changed the court system. I'm hoping that it will be for the better, in the sense that we have now moved into doing hearings, at least in non-jury trials, every day by video conference, the same way we're doing it right here today. Prior to me having to resign in April, because a magistrate has to resign to run for judge, I had the opportunity for those 2 months to actually run my courtroom during the COVID crisis. And so what did we do? Well, luckily my courtroom happened to have technology. Some of the courtrooms had to be brought up to speed technology-wise, but my courtroom was able to do that. And so we used my courtroom as sort of a test case for the first courtroom to handle actual litigants in a full hearing. And we did so, and were able to, you know, bring forth some process and procedure that then was later used by the circuit to be able to have hearings generally. There is a very large backup. It can't be stressed enough. The criminal court system, actually, the Supreme Court has you know, stopped the ability to raise speedy trials in criminal cases. And that's because there's no ability to have these cases heard by a jury. Just think of that now that we've been doing this for 6 months, and it's going to continue probably for the next few months until at least the beginning of the year. It is a backload that has to be dealt with. The Supreme Court and the circuit courts having to figure out, what will we do? How do we get evidence in? And luckily we are doing that in some test cases. There's about 5 circuits statewide that are now testing doing actual jury trials. Miami's one of them, by Zoom. Will that work for a criminal trial? We don't know. We're trying that out to see whether it's going to work, and work all of the kinks out of it in time for hopefully when we'll be able to have it up and running again. But whoever gets this job has to have that type of experience, has to have that type of knowledge of how you actually run a courtroom, to figure out where the special needs are when you're doing it in a COVID environment. And I think that's a very important point for anyone who will get this position for January of 2021. Thank you.
And to think that at one point, not all that long ago, just taking, you know, first appearances via video was considered, you know, revolutionary. And will this even be real? Tiffany Baker, what do you think of all this, and how do you react if you are elected to the bench? How do you handle this if, you know, we do have to do trials, even with a huge backlog, electronically? How does that work?
Yes. So I've had several hearings via Zoom so far. I'm actually getting prepared for a final hearing in family law where my client is seeking separation. And, you know, we're having to get prepared to introduce certain documents so that they will be legally introduced as evidence for that hearing. And so it is a challenge doing things differently, but different doesn't mean bad. You know, there are a lot of benefits to having these hearings done via Zoom. You know, I'm able to, you know, handle a lot more cases when I don't have to go get in my car and go from, my office and back to the courtroom and then meet a client. I'm able to accomplish a lot more via this technology. And in certain aspects, I appreciate this from COVID, because this is one of the ideas that I had, about being a circuit judge. Maybe I can use my type A millennial skills and modernize the bench a little bit by saving a lot of attorneys' time from being in the courtroom. Because I can tell you, as a private attorney, sometimes I'll go to court and have to just sit there for maybe an hour or so just to pass a case for a case management conference. But to your question about, what would I do in this COVID area? I would focus on those with the constitutional right to a speedy trial. So if I am on the criminal bench, I would prioritize those defendants who are currently in custody, waiting to have their cases resolved. Unfortunately, there are several defendants who are in the Leon County Jail where, yes, there is the presence of COVID now. They're waiting to have their day in court. I believe those cases should be prioritized so that they're heard first. That way, they're out of harm's way from COVID in the jail, and they are also getting their constitutional right to a trial as soon as it is safe. If I'm put on the family law bench, I would prioritize divorce hearings, so that, the people who have been waiting to have those final hearings in complicated cases that are involving children and large assets, people are ready to be separated so that they can move on with their lives. So bringing finality and adjudicating cases, that is how I will prioritize the bench once I become your circuit judge. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. You are listening and watching. If you are witnessing this on our Facebook page, perspectives of a political nature, the 3 out of 4 contenders for the circuit judgeship in the Second Judicial Circuit. This is Group 4. If you miss all or part of a Perspectives program, it is always available online, not only on our WFSU.org website, but also our WFSU Public Media Facebook page. We try to have the most recent program up in both places just as soon as we can after it airs on the radio, so you can hear, and in the case of Facebook, actually see the folks who are talking, which is a wonderful thing for sure. Got a question for all 3 of you again, and this one is, it's kind of just personal protocol, if you will, starting with you, Ms. Nina Moody. How do you prepare for a case? I know some judges that kind of like a fresh, clean slate. They don't want a lot of preconceptions. Yeah, they'll have the basics down, but they want to go in and kind of find the lay of the land from what transpires in the courtroom. Other folks will spend untold hours poring over every single document that there is connected to that case. How do you operate when you're on the bench?
I think it would depend on what the case is. If it is a case where the judge alone is making a decision based on filings, then I would make sure I was totally familiar with everything that had been filed in that case and any type of evidence that had come in. If you are talking about a non-jury trial, like in criminal court, where the judge is the finder of the fact and applying the laws to the fact instead of the jury, that would be different. I should be learning what is coming into the case as evidence as it is happening, so that I am unbiased and that I'm not have not tainted myself with something that I shouldn't have before sitting on that case. So it would be a combination depending on what the case was. I think ultimately a judge that's fully informed with everything that they need to be, everything that's in that file, anything that's ever been filed in that case. I think a fully informed judge and a judge who researches the law themselves, which I would do, not just relying on the parties bringing it to you. I think that's very important. And I think that's what we want, is a judge that's going to be thorough, understand, make sure that they understand the law the way it is written, and make sure they take into account everything that makes up that case.
Okay, Tiffany Baker, your preparation process for a case.
Okay, as judge, what I would do is simply start with the law. I don't, every case is somehow grounded in the law, and I would start there. I would make sure that I have a full understanding of what the law is and what the party is asking for, whether it's a civil case. What is the issue? What is the party asking for? What relief are they asking for? What are they seeking to accomplish? What are they asking me to adjudicate? And then on the other side, is this other party raising a defense? Is this a defense even applicable? Is this defense grounded in the law? I need to understand as judge, what does the law say, not only about the facts of the case, the issue in the case, but, the issues that are raised by each party. So that's how I would start. I would start with the law and also be prepared, especially in criminal trials. This is why having criminal trial experience is so important, is to be prepared for to ask clarifying questions. So when you know what kind of case is being brought before you, if you know you're in a robbery case, and you know that the officer can't testify to what another person told them, then you need to be listening out for the objection of hearsay. So making sure that I am up on my game in the rules of evidence and the rules of civil evidence and criminal evidence. So it's always about learning, and it's always about making sure that you stay sharp. And listen, I am human, and I am humble in that regard, and understanding that I am limited in, what I know, and that is okay. But what I plan to do as judge is, if I don't know something, I'm going to step off the bench, because it is important that I get it right. It is important to the parties, and most importantly, it's important to justice. So that is how I intend to make sure that I am prepared as your next circuit judge. Thank you.
Amanda Wall, preparation. What do you think?
Well, look, the first thing you do as a judge when you're walking into the courtroom is be prepared by reading the docket. The docket has all the pleadings in it. It has what the parties are asking the court to do and the law that they've cited to. You're not an activist judge. You're not there to independently research their case. What you're there to do is to read what they have filed and what they've presented to you. And of course, you have to be very knowledgeable about evidentiary rulings and procedural rulings. And then once they present it to you, it's your job to evaluate it and come to a conclusion. But the very first thing you do every day, and what I did every day for 6 years in over 3,000 cases, was I read the docket. I think that is the simple first step that is the most important, so that you understand what's happened in this case before. Therefore, when people are making arguments, you can make appropriate rulings based on what you've read. So prepared is the most important.
A quick final question for each one of you here. Talk a little bit about what seems to be a growing public acceptance of the idea that judges should incorporate their political views into the rulings they hand down from the bench. We hear all this talk about, we need good conservative judges, we need good progressive jurists, we need, across the political spectrum. And Nina Moody, let's start with you. What do you think?
Starting with me again, okay. That's kind of a touchy question in a way, because especially given the ethics rules here in Florida for judicial candidates. The only thing, we're not supposed to be legislatures from the bench. That's why we have a Senate and a House of Representatives to pass the laws for the will of the people. So the judge's job is to make sure that the law is followed, and that our Constitution of the United States and of Florida is followed. So as far as judges being there to change, I think, or a good conservative judge or a good whatever, I think really what that comes down to is, you know, you learn in law school and you know, other places, which it's written about how you have judges that believe the Constitution is a living, breathing document, changes with the way society changes, and you have judges that believe that are textualists, like Scalia was, that the Constitution says what it is, and it's black and white, and that's how you apply it. But as far as what we are going to be encountering in circuit court judges, it is following the law. And that's what we would have to do, and not be legislating the bench, because that's not what our role is.
Thank you. Amanda Wall, your thoughts along that line. Again, it seems to be almost fait accompli. People say, well, you know, we need to have essentially partisan jurists, you know, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on. What do you think?
It's in direct violation of the Supreme Court Code of Conduct and the election even legislative statutes. It's a very important philosophy, a very important rule that the judiciary is independent, that we are not one party or another, but that we are independent and that we stay independent. And why is that important? Because when you come in front of the court because your daughter has a divorce, or your neighbor is there on a criminal charge, or you're there because of a probate case, you don't want the judge to have a preconceived notion or a preconceived political view or any type of preconceived view that is biased in some way. And to say that you are politically one champion or another as a jurist is really the antithesis of what our system is all about. Our branch of government, the judicial branch, is to be truly independent. And that is a very important part of what we are here for. And I know for myself it is. I am committed to that, and I believe in it strongly, because I know and I've seen how that works in court every day and why it's so important. So unbiased, impartial, and independent is what we should be without political party involvement.
Tiffany Baker, you get the last word on this one.
Thank you, and it's not a long word. It's simple. You know, that's why I'm running. I'm running because it is important for our community to have trust in the bench. Trust that the judge on the bench is not going to put their political affiliations above the law, will not put their own personal beliefs or biases above the law. You know, it's about making sure that people are respected. That's where we start. When people step into the courthouse, they need to feel confident that they will be heard regardless of how they look or how well they speak. They will be treated with dignity and respect, and that whatever ruling that the judge renders is fair and just. That has nothing to do with the judge's political affiliation. It has nothing to do with the judge's personal bias. It has nothing to do with how the judge may, feel about a particular law. The law is the law. The legislatures, they write the law. The people elect the legislatures, and the courts are designed to serve the people. So our job as a judge is to simply follow the law. So it's pretty, simple for me. Politics and, all that other stuff, it has no place in the courtroom because it has nothing to do with justice. Thank you.
If it's okay, folks, let me give each of you, we haven't timed anything out, but let's give you about a minute to wrap up, to make the case. Final arguments, your honors, if we could, as to why you should be the voters' pick for the next judge in the Second Judicial Circuit for Group 4. We'll go back to our original order. Nina Moody, go ahead.
Being a circuit judge has many qualifications rolled into one, and that is you do need someone that has the knowledge, someone that does have experience and someone that also has the demeanor in order to run a good courtroom. And I do have all three of those. I've been working in the court system for over 20 years as an attorney. Prior to that, I worked over 8 years as a paralegal. I have dealt with thousands of clients that I have stood next to in the courtrooms and hearings, trials, negotiations throughout the last almost 20 years. I have learned so much by being an advocate, and we are all part of humanity, and a judge needs to realize they're part of humanity too. And with me, you would get someone that has the knowledge, the experience, and the demeanor to listen and treat everyone with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina Moody. Amanda Wall.
Thank you, and thanks again for this opportunity to speak to people, because there's not a lot in unfortunately, this COVID era. I believe that experience and as Ms. Moody said, knowledge and demeanor is important, and the type of experience you've had is very important. So I have been an advocate for 25 years of the 31 years that I have practiced law in the state of Florida. I've had over 1,000 criminal trials as a prosecutor in a large metropolitan city, Miami. I've had years of practice as a private practitioner in civil litigation and family law. I've committed much of my career to public service in being a prosecutor, in being an assistant attorney general, and in being a magistrate, as well as having the good experience of private practice. But I haven't just been an advocate. I've also presided over cases for 6 years. And especially today, in the situation that the court system is in currently, because of the backup of cases, because of the financial restrictions that are going to be on the court system, it is very important the type of experience that you've had. I also am a volunteer in the community in the law and as a private citizen, because I care about this community that I've raised my family here for the past 25 years. And so I hope that I have earned your respect and earned your vote on August the 18th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Tiffany Baker, your summation, please.
Thank you, Tom. And again, thank you for this opportunity to be here to speak with the people in our community. You know, my campaign is simply about building trust between the bench and all members of this community. It is about respecting the people, respecting the law, and respecting the bench. How can we say as judges, we respect the law and we don't follow it? No, as your judge, I will follow the law. I will make sure that I don't put any politics or any personal biases above the law, but simply do what is right, do what is fair, and do what is just. And when it comes to respecting the people, I am going to treat everyone who stands before me with dignity and respect. That no matter who comes in my courtroom, no matter how they look or how well they speak, I understand that not everyone speaks the Queen's English, but they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. It's about respecting the people, respecting the law, and respecting the bench. And so as your judge, I don't believe that we need just another judge on the bench. You know, our experience, all of our experiences as 3 judicial candidates running for this seat, we all have the necessary experience that it takes to become judge. But justice is too precious to turn a blind eye to injustice. We need more good judges on the bench. So yes, my experience qualifies me to be judge, but it is my life experience that will make me a good judge. It is my life experience that has taught me to meet people where they are, to listen with an open heart, because I know that everything that I think may not be right or correct or the way another person may see it. It is up to me to listen compassionately so that I can get the truth and deliver justice. So ladies and gentlemen, I am asking for you to vote for Tiffany Baker on August 18th as your circuit judge, because of course, the courts belong to the people, and I am here to serve the people. Vote Tiffany Baker. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Thank you, Ms. Moody, and thank you, Ms. Wall, for being part of our political perspectives on WFSU Public Media. And good luck in the election. Thanks also to Taylor Cox, Paul Dam, Amy Diaz de la Villegas, Tricia Moynihan, Lydell Rawls, our Zoom facilitator and executive producer, Kim Kelling. I'm Tom Flanigan. We'll have two political perspectives next week as we close out the primary ballot. On Tuesday, we'll meet the two folks vying for Leon County School Board Seat 4, and we'll wrap up the Circuit Judges Contest with the two contenders for Group 16 on Thursday of next week. We invite you to join us on air and online from WFSU Public Media.